Welcome everyone to Lunchbox TV reviews for Creepin' It Real. And today we're talking about John Carpenter's The Thing, which came out, was it 82? Yeah.
1982.
1982, ripe old age. We don't do older movies like these, do we? Not.
Because I picked the movies. That's why.
Oh, yeah. it's usually the Netflix fare that just recently came out, and studios couldn't put it on in theater, so they throw it on Netflix and watch. But anyways, regardless of that, John Carpenter, horror master, and we're here. It stars Kurt Russell. Let's start with some initial thoughts. What did you guys think?
You know what? I can start. Throw out the fact that it was it is 39 years old. I actually really like the movie. I remember as a kid seeing it for the first time, scaring me. Now I'm not as scared, but it's still that story of like man versus man, where okay, who actually is the thing here, which got me still very into the movie. So I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah, my experience with this movie is a little bit different because it came out before I was born, so I didn't watch it at a young age at all. I think the first time I watched it, I was probably 20 something. So by that point, it was an old movie. So I'm a modern horror fan. But the thing I will say in rewatching this movie, exactly what Lou said, I think the tension between the characters holds up really well. And that's the thing that to me makes it scary now. I can imagine that when it first came out, the special effects stuff and that sort of thing would have been like the scariest part of the movie. That doesn't do it for me now. Also, having seen like the prequel, remake, whatever it is, the other Thing movie where the special effects in that scared the absolute bejesus out of me more recently. So I have trouble because I do compare the two. Yeah, but still good.
It's funny. So I'll share the story now at the beginning, top of the hour here. Apparently, like this is a story my mom and dad would share, that my mom was in the theater. She was pregnant with this guy while watching The Thing, because it came out in September. I was born in December. And there's a scene, I mean, spoilers for a near 40-year-old movie, but the scene where the dog starts just like shredding open and everything, like really brutal scene. Apparently I started kicking and going ham in her stomach, and my mom freaked out so bad she had to leave. She got my dad to leave the movie theater right away. So I didn't watch it as a kid because I didn't know. My parents told me that story later on when I was older. I think I also watched it like in my 20s. But by that time, I thought it was great because, like, just like everyone said, the atmosphere is incredible. It's so tense, and it's so well done. The performances, which we'll get to, it's a very unique movie for its time. And I'm gonna pretend the remake didn't happen because that used too much CGI. That was just, please don't do that. Okay, all right. Yeah, brief summary. So. There's a team stuck in, they're not really stuck, but they're working in an Antarctic base. And were they Swedish? Norwegian, right. They were Norwegian. Norwegian folks are chasing after a dog on a helicopter, trying to kill the dog, a husky. And it's very puzzling. Apparently, the translation of what the Norwegian says is, get away from that thing. It's not from this world. So like if you're Norwegian, you get the spoiler right away that the dog is a creature. And the movie is basically about this alien creature that infiltrates and duplicates any sort of living creature. And so the mystery is, who is the thing? And nobody knows for sure. Even at the end of the movie, you're still not positive who ended up being the thing the entire time, if even the main protagonist is. Although there is a scene with the test and the blood where they test who's the thing. Very tense moments. Gore factor, pretty ridiculous because there's a lot of body horror in this. So let's start with the story. How'd you feel about the story?
Yeah, like I said, the story is great. It's tense. The atmosphere is just like, well, tense. The crazy thing about it is, I mentioned that I watched it as a kid and then didn't really watch it. I would say the last time I watched it, like until a couple days ago, was maybe when I was 13 or 14. But some of those scenes are just like buried in my mind. Like once the first dog scene came out, like that, I remember that without
Yeah.
remembering most of the story. I remember that, and I remember them going to like when they went under to like kind of try and blow it up. I still remember that, which is crazy. So it holds up. Again, the tenseness of just like who can be the thing now. Like even the test, you're not really sure because it's one of those who done it kind of thing, but who's the monster. So story is really good, and maybe Michelle can shed some light. There's not really a lot of movies that are kind of like that, but I could be proven wrong by Michelle. But yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah, its story is really good. I loved it. Holds up until today.
Now I'm like racking my brain to be like, what movie is kind of like this? I'm sure there are. I'm like thinking about it. There's definitely there's movies like this. I don't think any movie does it as well. And I can't talk about this one without talking about the other one that Alex doesn't like, but so bear with me. That's the thing that the other one doesn't do very well. When I actually compare the two, it doesn't feel like this who do I trust man versus man. It's very much like there's a monster here and the monster is the scary thing. And that feels very, very different, like tension wise. It's just a monster movie. It's not this more human story, even though there is a monster like this movie. And I think that's the thing this movie does super duper well. And the thing I also really like story wise is the fact that the environment itself is also like a negative factor. Just I think about the scene where they were like getting lost in the snow, and that was actually really stressful. Like the monster's not there, the thing's not there, but it's this additional stressor, this additional like thing that makes the environment and the story feel very contained in this tiny little base. And that I think is what makes this such an effective horror movie, is because like it's just this claustrophobia feeling of like there's something in here with me and it could be my friend, but it could also not. I'm not sure. I think it holds up great in that sense. Story wise, so good, like really, really good story. I mean, it's an older movie, so there's a couple things that I'm like, like
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't think I don't know translate to now time. But when you kind of watch it, knowing of when it came out and generally like what things were like for horror movies and just movies in general, it all makes sense and it's still very, very, very good. So yeah.
Also, before Alex goes, I just want to also mention that sometimes the lack of music in certain scenes also adds to the tension. You know how these days we're so used that there's just music to everything to enhance what you're feeling, kind of, or what the director wants to make you feel. In this movie, it does, but there's certain scenes that there's no music. So you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen now?
Yeah.
It's that like you're waiting for something.
And instead of music, you hear the howling of the wind, which again just adds to that atmosphere. Like Michelle says, like you're all alone and just this like encompassing darkness that you can't see. You don't know what's gonna reach out and grab you, and like that feeling is like it's pervasive in like while you watch the movie. And like what makes it stronger is that like there's like maybe 3 or 4 actors that like you kind of recognize from other movies, but for the most part, like you don't really like. Personally, I watch it every few years and I don't really remember who's the thing, even though because they're not like the most iconic actors that you've seen all over the place. So it always has me guessing. I'd also say like a movie or not really reminds me of, but like a movie that came out afterwards that reminds me of The Thing is Hateful Eight by Quentin Tarantino, where they're stuck in this bar in the middle of a blizzard, and they don't know who's like a turncoat, who's there for what purpose. There's a lot of the same elements, and the music well, we're talking story here, but the music is Ennio Morricone, who does like a bunch of westerns and who also provided the music for The Hateful Eight. Go figure. So yeah, there's the bridge right there. Yeah. But yeah, no. As for story, it keeps me guessing. It's you guys nailed it exactly. Performances now. We got Kurt Russell. We have Mr. Diabetes himself, Wilford Brimley. We also have I always forget his name. He plays Childs, and that is Keith David, who's also in They Live with Roddy Piper, another classic John Carpenter movie. But yeah, not very star-studded. But I'm like personally, like I said, I'm glad because it keeps me guessing during a rewatch. What did you guys think of the performances?
You know what? The performances were okay. I mean, there's nothing too great or too high or too low. Everyone's performance was okay. Again, we're gonna keep talking about how this is a 40-year-old movie. I mean, people's kind of acting methods have improved also with the time. So if you really think about it, the acting is very 80s, but it's okay. It gets their points across. I guess in cinema, this era is, the kind of awkward teen years for cinema, for like everything, even acting wise. But it was really cool seeing a young Kurt Russell. I mean, I didn't even recognize that was Keith David until he spoke, and I'm like, "Yep, that's him." Not the Knowles guy who just had roller skates on was just like, I love it. Dude just had roller skates on, and yeah, I mean, I can't really complain about anything like their performances. So yeah, except that weird kind of I guess it's not a performance, but in the very first scenes where I can't remember who it was, but like when the guy was shooting the dog and it was there and he broke the glass and the door's right beside him, but he broke the glass and just started shooting. That was my only like, all right, whatever. But yeah.
Dramatic.
Ooh, yeah. I think Blue nailed it. 80s acting is different from current like acting. I think nowadays we're seeing more, I don't nuance perhaps. Like there's smaller gestures in the way people act. People can do tiny little things and it can be coming across on video and actually contribute to the character. Whereas I think in any movies, honestly, even like pre-2000s, even a lot of the 90s movies that I've like seen, or especially in the horror genre, they're big performances. Everyone goes hard to get the point across, to create the tension, to do whatever it is they're doing. It's a little bit less of like this understated. And I think this movie is a good example of that, because it's like all the characters go hard. They're big personalities, big performance. There's a lot like more physical performances, I would say, than we see in more current movies. There was a lot like more flailing, like I don't know, just like more like gesturing and bigger movement from the characters. And it didn't, once I got used to it, and because every character was doing it, it didn't seem so weird to me. But like at first I was like, hey, calm down, y'all are doing a lot right now. You could do less and still have this good movie. But I think it just speaks for the time that the movie was made. And once I got used to it, honestly, I had no problems with it. I didn't think it was necessarily a bad performance for anyone because of that. I think that was just the performance that made sense at the time and still works. Didn't take me out of it once I got past it in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I was fine for it. Like obviously the story outshines the performance, but without like these performances, the movie's not as effective. So like they're clearly doing something right. Kurt Russell is great as a lead because like he's a likable hero, even though he's a little unstable at times. But again, that does lead to like the distrust of these characters. Like you don't even know if you should trust your own protagonist. So yeah, I found that cool. And now let's talk special effects, because the prosthetic makeup creatures, they were done by a 23-year-old Rob Bottin, who's also known for other movies like The Howling, The Fog, movies from like the 80s, you know, but you know, he got to start there at a really young age. Yeah, it was very special effects heavy once the thing popped up on screen, lots of transformative stuff, heads coming off and all that sort of stuff. How did you guys think it holds up 40 years later?
Man, it's good. Like, again, we're gonna throw out the 40-year-old label on this thing, and it was good. As especially, I just realized that you told me right now that he was just 23 when he first started doing it. It was amazing. Like some of the transformation, some of it looked really cool. Some of it you could kind of tell that it was like, okay, that was just definitely another cut. Like there's this one where the chest where it's about to explode. He was just there, but the next thing it's like his chest is already way up here. I don't mind, but like the transformations itself, like the freakiness of the people that were infected and how like the grotesque the faces were, it was really, really good. And even to this day, it looks cool.
Yeah, I'd say like 80% of it holds up really well, like surprisingly well. You get the occasional one, like there's a couple of moments with like the little floppy bits that just don't work as well as I imagine they would at the time. But most of it is surprisingly effective still, even for myself who, you know, I love the gore and the creepy and the scary stuff. And there are the moments with the dogs still really like that still has an effect on me. Like, no, that's gross. It's so well done that I'm like simultaneously appreciating how well done it is. And also I'm like, ew, this is so nasty. Like, this is scary. I don't like it. It has this beautiful otherworldly feeling to it. And because it like, it's humanoid-esque and animal-esque. It's familiar enough, but it's also creepy enough that it has that like uncanny valley. It's very sketchy. It's like uncomfortable without being so weird that it's silly. It's this really perfect in between. Like I can't think of too many other body horror moments that nail it the way this movie does. Like I truly cannot. And there's been a lot of attempts for sure. This one is still absolutely iconic.
Yeah, I think if John Carpenter created Halloween and that was like the template for slasher films for like decades to come, this is like the template for like gross body horror stuff for decades to come as well. This set the standard. Like little like nitpicks of like stuff that looks really weird. Like for example, what was his name? Vance. Like the dude that his head comes off, like the one who's like his chest bursts and like, you know, closes up, but like his head also falls off and like it grows out like these spider legs, but when it runs away, like the legs don't do the work. He just sort of glides on the floor. Yeah, and that's like, ooh, that would have been gliding in 2020, right? But in any case, like, you know, it gets the point across really well, really brutally. Now let's talk about a favorite scene or favorite scare. I don't know if they're mutually exclusive or whatever. But how did you guys feel? What did you think was your favorite?
So I have a favorite scene and a favorite scare. So my favorite scene, actually, we mentioned it. You just mentioned it actually, like the chest thing when he was doing the defibrillator, and then it just opens up and grabs the head. That was my favorite scene. But my favorite scare, and it's only because I didn't really remember this part, is when they were testing the blood. That caught me off guard, and I was just like, ah! So yeah, that was my favorite scare. That was actually the only part of the movie that made me jump, because I didn't expect it, and it was like perfect with the added sound, and just it made me jump.
You stole my answer for both mine, actually. My favorite scene is also my favorite scare, which was the blood scene. For me, because it's a long scene and it's very tense. Like that's to me when like there's really the boiling point of the tension between the characters. Who am I trusting? Who am I not? We have I can't remember the character's name, but he's kind of like sneaking around the back, and you're like, okay, watch for him, but also watch for the people that are tied up. It feels very like watch all angles, watch your back, watch your front. Like it's very intense. And then the scare with the blood, because there's a delay on it. There's this like, I don't know if it's like a second or half a second delay on like when he starts to do the thing to the blood, and then it like gets you. And it's that in that second, you're like, oh, it's fine. It's just enough for you to be like, it's all good. And then it gets you. And I love a delayed jump scare. It gets done too often. It gets like, now in like more modern horror, we get the fake out jump scare where it's like, oh, it's gonna scare you, just kidding, it didn't. And then something else completely scares you. I like this type of jump scare where it's like delayed. You just start to be like, oh no, it's fine. And then it happens. And that beautiful. When used well and sparingly is such an effective horror, like scary thing to do.
Yeah. I think what adds to it so much is that you anticipate the sound, like the blood curdling sound of like the nail on the plastic container, like, and like you're waiting for it, but then you don't get it, and that's like, oh, everything changes. Oh my god, yeah. So it's funny. I have the exact same thing for Lou, but flipped. Like my favorite scene is the blood scene, the blood testing scene. I love that because it's so tense. But my favorite scare is that autopsy, or not autopsy, but like he's trying to bring him back, and he gets his hand just bitten off. Crazy. But yeah, we're all three of us are basically on the same page when it comes to that. Shout out to that dog scene, because Michelle, the way you talked about the dog scene, I thought that was gonna be like, I mean, it's up there, obviously, it's incredible.
It's up there.
Yeah.
It's my like easily like just in second place to the blood scene. It's so good. The dog scene is spectacular. Yes.
Great dog acting as well. Just having a husky standing still. That's fantastic in front of a bunch of other dogs. Like, from what I've seen from huskies, they don't do that.
Yeah, and they also aren't that quiet.
Yeah.
They're loud and they're everywhere. That dog's just sitting and standing in place. Amazing.
Yeah, best performance in the movie.
Best performance for sure.
Fantastic.
Great dog.
Okay, let's talk final thoughts and score it out of 5. Take it away.
Final thoughts. The Thing holds up 40 years later. It's still good. I would still recommend it to any horror fan, movie fan in general. It's great. I would give it a 4 out of 5.
I too would recommend it to all horror fans. Speaking particularly to my modern horror buddies out there, I feel like we as modern horror fans need to respect the things that pave the way for the things that we like. So if you're a fan of body horror, I think you can't not watch this movie and appreciate it, even if it doesn't hold up for you personally. It had such an impact, and you can see the impact on every movie since. Any type of body horror. I think particularly of Color Out of Space, which does a lot of animal body horror, which reminds me exactly of this movie. So I think we got to pay a little respect to the elder movies out there.
It's not that old. It's as old as me.
It's older than me, so I can say this.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't say ancient. I didn't say the ancient movies. So the elder movies. It's a term of respect. But yeah, for me, I mean, because it is older, it's not my modern horror. It's not exactly what I typically like. I can still appreciate it, but I'll give it probably like a 3.5 out of 5. So still good. I probably won't watch it anytime again soon, because it's good, and that's it.
To me, this is I chose the movie because it's just my favorite horror movie. It's to me, it's perfection. It does everything it's supposed to be, and like, without having a template for him, John Carpenter, he didn't just execute it perfectly. He built the stage for what was to come, and like, major props for that. It's amazing. It does everything like amazingly. Like, the slight flaws, you could just pin it down for its age or for its time, which isn't that old, but but yeah, this to me, it's a 5 out of 5. Like, this is perfection for horror, and it's scary when it needs to be scary, and it's not loud and dumb, which is like 90% of horror movies today, over the past like 20 years, let's say 20, 30 years. Yeah. So yeah, bravo. Yes. And with that, we are wrapping things up on The Thing. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this hip young movie, let us know what you thought, if you agree or disagree. All right. Follow us on our socials and all our stuff. I'm Alex, and I have been joined by Lou and Michelle, which I forgot to do at the top of the hour because I talked too much. But we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.